It is a strange thing to realize the first time you ever wanted to kiss someone was the moment you were supposed to hate them. I was shaking his hand at a fundraiser, smiling like every other donor in that hotel ballroom, but my chest was screaming at me. Don't look too long. Don't let anyone see. His name was Daniel Pierce, husband of Senator Robert Pierce. The kind of man newspapers called a pillar of family values. The kind of man who gave perfect speeches about faith, marriage, and patriotism. And Daniel was the man who stood at his side, always smiling politely, always silent. But up close, behind the stiff tuxedo and the polished grin, I saw something raw flicker in his eyes, something that mirrored my own loneliness. I wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't rich, wasn't connected. I was a staffer level, invisible. My boss had dragged me along to fill a seat at the table. Yet when Daniel's gaze caught mine across the room, it felt like the world tilted slightly off its axis. He didn't look away, even when his husband leaned in to whisper something into his ear. That lingering glance became a spark I couldn't stop chasing. Later that night, when I stepped outside to breathe from the suffocating speeches, Daniel was already there, leaning against the stone wall, loosening his tie. For a man married to a senator, he looked like someone who desperately wanted to escape his own life. "You don't belong here," he said, his voice low but not unkind. "Neither do you." I shot back before I could stop myself. He laughed an honest, unguarded laugh, and just like that, the distance between us vanished. The weeks that followed were a blur of chance encounters. Coffee in tucked-away corners of D.C., stolen conversations in parking lots, an accidental brush of his fingers when he passed me a pen. Each time I told myself this was madness. He was untouchable, married, the picture-perfect spouse of a powerful man. And yet each time, the pull toward him grew stronger. But the confession that came later. The night it all changed was a stormy Tuesday, rain hammering against the windows of the library where I worked late. I thought I was alone until Daniel walked in, drenched, his eyes restless. "Why are you here?" I whispered, half afraid, half thrilled. He shook his head, water dripping from his hair. "Because I can't stop thinking about you, and I hate myself for it." I should have walked away. I should have reminded him of the ring on his finger, the vows he had made. But instead, my chest ached at the sight of him trembling between guilt and longing. "Daniel," I said softly, "you don't have to lie to yourself anymore." That was when he kissed me. Not a careful kiss, not a rehearsed one. It was desperate, reckless, as if he had been holding his breath for years and finally allowed himself to exhale. My whole body lit up with equal parts terror and relief. We both pulled back at the same time, panting, staring at each other like two men who had just stepped off a cliff together. "This can't happen," he whispered. But he didn't move away, and so it began our secret. The secrecy was intoxicating at first. Meeting in hidden places, our phones filled with coded messages. The thrill of brushing past each other at public events while pretending to be strangers. He would sit at his husband's side, cameras flashing, while I stood in the background, invisible, knowing that later he would come find me and whisper my name like a prayer. But passion always comes with a cost. The guilt ate at him. The fear consumed me. Every time he touched me, I imagined headlines, scandal, his life collapsing, mine dragged into the mud. And yet I couldn't let go. One night, as we sat in my tiny apartment, the blinds drawn, the city buzzing outside, he said something that shattered me. "You deserve better than this," Daniel murmured, his hand resting on mine. "Better than being someone's secret." I swallowed hard, my throat burning. Then leave him. The silence that followed was unbearable. He looked at me with eyes that begged for understanding, but also confessed his cowardice. "It's not that simple," he whispered. I laughed bitterly. "It never is it? Not when power's involved. Not when the whole country is watching." His shoulders slumped, and for the first time, I saw the fragility beneath the polished husband facade. He wasn't just trapped in a marriage. He was trapped in an image, in expectations, in a life that didn't belong to him. And I, fool that I was, had become both his refuge and his prison. Still, even knowing that, I couldn't stop. When he kissed me that night, I let myself believe in the impossible. By the time winter came, the danger was no longer imagined. Someone had seen us. A journalist, young, ambitious, sharp-eyed. He cornered me outside a cafe, his notebook ready. "Care to comment on your relationship with Daniel Pierce?" My blood ran cold, and that was when I realized this love could burn everything down. Daniel didn't speak to me for days after the journalist showed up. My calls went unanswered, my messages left on read. I thought maybe that was it, the curtain had closed. The fantasy had dissolved under the harsh light of reality. I told myself I should be grateful, that maybe this was my way out before everything collapsed. But then he showed up at my door one night, his face pale, his suit wrinkled as if he'd been wearing it for days. He stepped inside without asking and pressed his forehead against mine. "They know," he whispered. His voice cracked on the words. My stomach dropped. "The press. Robert," he said. "He knows." For a long moment we just stood there, holding on to each other as if the walls might cave in. I imagined the senator's fury, the storm that was about to break over our heads, the life Daniel had built teetering on the edge of ruin. I expected him to tell me it was over, that he had chosen his husband, his safety, his image. Instead, he said something I will never forget. "I'm done hiding," Daniel breathed. "I can't keep living a life that doesn't belong to me." My chest tightened. "Daniel, I love you," he said simply. "And I won't spend another year pretending I don't." I kissed him then, not with fear but with the reckless joy of a man who finally believed in possibility. For the first time, the kiss wasn't a secret, wasn't stolen, it was ours, and it felt like the world could burn around us and it wouldn't matter. The scandal came, of course. Headlines blared about the affair, about betrayal, about hypocrisy. Senator Pierce stood in front of cameras, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with humiliation. He denied at first, tried to discredit the photographs, but the truth had a way of breaking free. Daniel walked beside me when the story went public. He didn't hide behind dark cars or back entrances. He laced his fingers with mine as reporters shouted questions, as flashbulbs blinded us. His hand trembled, but he didn't let go. People gasped, people judged, people whispered. Some called him brave, others called him selfish. But when I looked at him, I saw the man who had once stood in a rainy library confessing he couldn't stop thinking about me. That was the only truth I needed. The days after were chaos. Lawsuits, threats, angry letters. But in the quiet moments when the world fell silent and we lay together, his head against my chest, I realized that the storm had carved out something new for us. Something real. One evening months later, we returned to the same library where it had all begun. The rain tapped against the windows again, almost like it was repeating history. Daniel smiled at me, softer now, freer. "Do you regret it?" he asked, his voice low, uncertain. I thought of the fear, the secrecy, the nights spent wondering if the world would crush us. I thought of the pain in his eyes when he wanted to leave but couldn't, the journalist's questions, the senator's fury. Then I thought of his laughter in the dark, of his hand reaching for mine, of the way he finally said the words he had been afraid to speak. "Not for a second," I told him. He leaned in, kissing me with a tenderness that held none of the desperation of before. It was calm, steady, the kind of kiss that promised tomorrow. For the first time, we weren't a secret. We were just two men in love, daring to write a story that was entirely ours. The world kept turning. People moved on to the next scandal, the next headline. But for us, life was simpler now. Morning coffee together, late-night walks in the city, laughter that didn't need to be hidden behind closed doors. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever is. But it was honest. And sometimes honesty is the bravest, most romantic thing a person can give. As Daniel rested his hand in mine, sunlight spilling through the window, I understood something I hadn't before. Love isn't about being fearless. It's about choosing each other even when the fear is there. And in that choice, we found freedom. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.